Live from the Real Asset Queen studios in Kalispell, Montana, this is the Real Asset Queen Live, the one and only show about connecting people, process, and money. Each week, you'll hear mind-blowing interviews from top industry thought leaders, as well as actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your finances, business, or investing life. Please welcome your host, a former healthcare executive turned entrepreneur, investor, and efficiency expert, Michelle Kimbrough.
Hi guys, welcome to the Real Asset Queen. We are on episode 25 and we have a very special guest back with us again tonight. We have Keeley Hubbard, but we're going to be talking about mastering the art of sales, which is actually Keeley's passion business project. I'll let her speak a little bit to it. But Keeley is a high performance sales coach. And she also is a capital raising expert in the syndication world. And in addition to that, Keeley is also an investor in multifamily apartments and also Texas vineyards. So if you weren't with us when we talked about Texas vineyards, jump back, and they have a unique concept, her and her dad, syndicating vineyards, which is actually a legacy play. So make sure you tune in back. I forgot what episode it is. I'll put it in the notes so that you can refer to that. So Keeley, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience, and how about a new fun fact for you?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me back, Michelle. I always enjoy this so much. Like you mentioned, I'm one of those weirdos that loves sales. I'm obsessed with it. It really is my passion. And I've been in sales for almost 18 years now, and really built a pretty big career. Was VP of sales for a company that I helped to build from 40 million a year to about 220 million a year when I left. And we built that in less than 4 years. So that was kind of my in the trenches. I knew I was good at selling, but could I teach it? And that was proof for me that, okay, this is something that I can replicate. I always hated the pushy, aggressive sales tactics. I think that's what makes most people shy away from sales. And so for me to figure out a way to authentically sell, never feel like I'm being pushy or aggressive, and still climb to the top of my career and close hundreds of millions in revenue for me was okay, everybody needs to learn sales. They need to learn this version of it. So that's what I do now. I'm a sales coach for business owners that are either selling for themselves, right? Or they've got a sales team and are trying to close the gap and generate more revenue. And it's just my passion. It's a lifestyle for me. I eat, sleep, and breathe it.
Yeah, it's so important. And I think, like we were talking just a few minutes ago, if you're an entrepreneur, or even if you have a sales job, or you're in the medical field, or you have kids, sales is in every part of our life. And you're always having to negotiate, influence people to get them to do something. It may not be buying something, but it could be getting them to do something. So I think that there are some good tactics that we're going to touch on today that could apply to all, walks of life and, industries. So do you have a new fun fact for us?
I'm a 7th generation Texan. I don't know if that's, we talked about that last time, but that is probably one that people are like, wow, you've been here for a long time. And I have. If you've never met an obnoxious Texan that loves their state, I'll be your first. But that is me. Yeah, my dad's like, you're not allowed to leave Texas ever.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, that is pretty remarkable, and that is a cool claim to stake. 7 generations. I don't think a lot of people can claim that, So that's awesome. So let's talk about sales. So first off, why don't you tell us what sales is? Because everybody may have a different viewpoint of it. I think often people think of sales as the pushy used car salesman or multi-level marketing or anything like that, where, you automatically put up these walls because people don't like to be sold. So tell us what your definition of sales is.
Yeah, my definition of sales is disarmingly honest conversations. And the word disarm is a big part of that because so many people go into sales conversations tense, with their walls up. And so the very first step of my sales process that I teach is to disarm your potential client, and it makes them feel a lot more comfortable. It makes you feel much more comfortable in the conversation. But I think when people think of sales, like you mentioned, they hate it and they shy away from it because they think of all the terrible sales experiences they've had. And we've all had them. We're unfortunately reminded of how bad people are at sales on a daily basis. You can probably count your LinkedIn messages in your inbox of people, friend requesting you or connection requesting you, and then all of a sudden hitting you up for something. And people are just tired of the sales pitch. And so we think like, gosh, if I'm going to do sales or be successful in my business, I have to learn how to become that person that's pushy and aggressive, and it's not me and I hate it. At least that's what I hear from people that reach out to me. And so I really try to show them that sales doesn't have to be like that. People don't buy because bad behaving salespeople are aggressive or put a lot of pressure on. That doesn't make people say yes. They buy in spite of that. But I think a breath of fresh air and a way to operate in your business is just to have disarmingly honest conversations with people. And it is just a conversation. So that's my approach.
Yeah, I love that, because a lot of times, you get into that environment where it almost feels hostile, and you're pushed into the corner and our defense mechanisms come up. And then sometimes either you walk away and you miss out on that particular sale or purchasing that thing, or you end up buying something that you really don't want, overpriced or whatever, just to get out of the room. So you're right. We've all had those sales experiences. And, for myself, I don't like to be pushy either. I like to approach it as a problem solving situation and learn about the other person and build the relationship. So tell us why entrepreneurs need to learn how to sell. I know that probably sounds like a very, remedial question, but I think it's one that needs to be answered because a lot of entrepreneurs don't think that they need to know how to sell.
Yeah. And I have met some business owners that just want to put it off on somebody else, right? Like, well, I'm just going to hire a salesperson, and nobody's going to sell your business better than you are. And maybe you are going to eventually scale and build a team and bring on salespeople. But if you haven't been out there in the trenches yourself, and you don't really know who your ideal client is, what their pain points are, how can you begin to train up a sales team that's really going to be effective for you? I think for entrepreneurs, for most people, whatever they got into business for, it's usually their skill set, but nobody taught them sales. So worked with architects. They're incredible, at being an architect, but nobody taught them how to be a salesperson. Talking to somebody who owns a dental practice, they're incredible at being a dentist, but nobody talked to them about how to sell. And you have to drive revenue, right? You can't just, brush teeth all day, not to minimize it to that level, but you have to sell. If you want to really make great money as a dentist and truly serve your clients, you need to learn how to sell and sell the more expensive products and teeth whitening and veneers and all that stuff that's high ticket. But a dentist has never been taught sales, and they typically shy away from it. But like you mentioned, like, why do they have to learn it? Because it's a survival skill. Like, you will not make it in business if you don't learn how to sell. And that's probably not what everybody wants to hear, but it's just the truth. So you have to dig down and figure out what's making me so resistant against selling, and maybe start to question that in your mind. Is that true? Do I really have to be aggressive to be successful? Do I have to feel manipulative to be successful? Or can I be myself? Can I be authentic and just learn some strategies to have a great conversation with my ideal client and move the conversation forward towards a yes? It really can be that simple. It's just nobody taught us this. Nobody taught us sales in high school. Nobody taught us sales in college. I'm a communication studies major from TCU, is where I got my degree. Nobody taught sales. There's not one sales course in my entire, going for that degree. Nobody teaches it. Even in the business school, there's only a few courses on sales. And a lot of it is that old school stuff that people are just like, oh, I'm just going to take this course to get through it. And I'm not going to have to deal with sales. But it is the lifeline to your business. If you can master sales, you'll never worry about your income at the end of the month. You'll never be scrambling for payroll. You'll never be wishing that you could, spend 20, 30 grand in marketing to grow your business, but worrying that you don't have the money coming in to do it. There's a full pipeline. There's revenue just pouring in consistently when you really do learn how to sell. So how to sell, not sale. I get a little more twangy in Texas at the end of the day, but it is a life skill. You've got to learn it. It's like survival. Sales will take you so far in life.
So you talked about marketing because I have an MBA with an emphasis in finance and no sales courses, lots of marketing, right?
Mhm.
But what's the difference between marketing and sales?
Marketing is lead acquisition. So marketing could encompass branding, like you're the real asset queen, right? So when people see your logo, they see your colors, they remember your face, they remember your name, they remember what it is that you do. That's creating a brand. Marketing is generating leads, right? So it's kind of that outbound lead generation. Sales is when those leads come in and people reach out to you that you're actually converting it to cash. Like
Mm,
you could spend all this money on marketing. And when I was in the corporate world, that was one of the things that I was brought on to do was, hey, we're spending $1,200 per lead to get this one person to walk into our campus. They were selling high ticket education. If it costs $1,200 to get one person to walk into a local campus, it has got to translate to revenue, or the franchise owner is not going to be in business for that long. So it's learning how to convert those leads into cash, and not just a one-time client, but consistently, spending more money with you, reinvesting it. They become a lifelong client.
yeah, I think that's a critical point because some people may get confused between marketing and sales. So you could have a really good marketing pipeline where things are coming in, but if you don't understand the sales process or the sales cycle and how to close, then you're really throwing money out the window, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I see a lot of business owners that just want to focus on the very top of their funnel. If I just had more leads, I'd make more money. And they're not converting what they're already getting. And it's typically because their sales process is broken. So whatever, they're not driving people to a conversation. Most people try to avoid conversations because they hate sales so much. So they're just trying to sell people through email or a drip campaign or getting them to their website. And if you would just get on the phone with them, your conversion rate would be so much higher. So it's really making sure that you're addressing the right part of the funnel. You probably have plenty of leads coming in. It's just making sure that you're closing those. I teach my clients, and I've proven this for many years in sales, that if you are talking to people that have the problems that you fix, they have the problems you fix, they're financially qualified, meaning they're able to invest to fix their problem, you should be closing 90% of your conversations. So
Yeah.
if you're not at that level, don't spend more money on marketing to drive more leads in. You're just wasting money at that point.
Yeah. And I think the closing part is where people get apprehensive,
Yeah.
right? Because now you're asking for the money, or now you're asking for the close, right?
Mhm.
And I think it may go back to, if you read Zig Ziglar, some of that's internal, right?
Oh yeah.
And those internal struggles and insecurities, or whatever they are, fear of saying no. And that was one of my questions I'm going to ask you. You know, being a failure, having people say no can be very traumatic to people. And when I started getting into sales and learning it and everything, I literally sat on the phone and I cold called 100 people a day for
Wow.
months to get over that fear of people saying, no, I don't have time to talk to you. No, I hanging a phone up, just to make myself get through that barrier, because I was one of those people. I didn't want anybody to tell me no, not because, I was offended or anything, but it felt like a knife going through my gut.
Yeah, it's you have to become rejection proof. We're not in business to make more friends. That's sometimes a byproduct of being in business. So it's like, cool, we made some friends here, but we're not in business searching for friends. So we don't need people's approval. We're there to help change people's lives with whatever it is that you do. I'm sure that you're in an industry that you truly believe changes people's lives. So if that's the case, we're not looking for their approval, then we shouldn't be worried about hearing that word no. And I think if you know that no is inevitable, like it's going to happen many, many times. So you have to be able to shake it off. One of my sales coaches early in my career, he said, fail fast, fail often, and fail forward. But it was the fail fast part for me that I've gotten better over the years. If you have a disappointment, even if it's not in sales, just in life in general, you have a disappointment. It's like, I'm a big fan of a pity party. Like I'll throw a pity party for myself, but limit it, right? You can throw a pity party for the next 5 minutes and get over it and on to the next thing, shake it off. Let's keep moving forward. And I think that helps from, the perceived rejection. If you expect it and know that if you're not getting no's, you're not out there putting your business out there enough, then maybe that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, and I think that's a big barrier for people to walk through, getting yourself out there and then recognizing that people are going to say no, and no doesn't necessarily mean no.
Yeah.
It could just mean no at that minute. And I think recognizing that too. So, what about creating a sales environment? You talked a little bit about that a few minutes ago. So, we're used to, a very harsh, um, you know, environments where people are, cramming things down your throat and trying, we talked about those LinkedIn messages that you get all the time, like they just jump right into the cell without creating an environment. So talk to us a little bit about what that looks like for you and how can somebody create that?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it in the beginning about disarming people. And so there's so many bad, I call them bad behaving salespeople, poorly trained business owners that just think if they send enough messages on LinkedIn, then they're going to find clients. And I feel like you've got to do something that stands out. And so I teach what's called pattern interrupts. And a pattern interrupt is doing the exact opposite of what a typical salesperson would do. So if you're picking up the phone and you're cold calling somebody, or maybe it's a client you're wanting to work with, number one, you should be calling to the top. Don't try to find the assistant, find the CEO, whoever it is that's in charge of making that decision. You need to be calling at the top. But when you are calling, the last thing you want to do is say, "Hi, Michelle. My name is Keeley Hubbard, and I'm calling with, say AT&T, right? My name is Keeley Hubbard. I'm calling with AT&T. How are you today?" That's the absolute worst thing you could do, because all these flags are going up in their mind. I'm talking to a salesperson. I don't have time for this. Get off the phone as soon as possible. And it's because I'm behaving just like a typical salesperson. So instead, when I would call, a CEO or make a cold call to anybody, it's, "Hey, Michelle, it's Keeley Hubbard." And then it's this awkward silence. I'm just quiet, because in their mind, it's like, okay, she sounds friendly. Am I supposed to know who she is? I just want them spinning. What I don't want is that red flag going up. I'm talking to a salesperson. And my next line is, "It sounds like I caught you at a bad time." And I have not told them where I'm calling from, what I want. Curiosity gets the best of people, and they will say, "No, what's this about?" And then I say, "I'm not even sure if we should be having this conversation, but how about I tell you why I'm calling? Give me 30 seconds. If you think it's a good fit, we can keep talking. If not, you hang up. Is that fair?" Everybody says yes, because they still don't know why I'm calling. And all I asked for was 30 seconds. And when I have that 30 seconds, I'm going to nail it with what the pain points are. But I've disarmed them, most importantly. She's not a typical salesperson. She's not going to take a bunch of my time. I can tell that she's busy as well. And so it creates that environment of mutual respect. And most importantly, I'm not behaving like a typical salesperson. So just as one example, when you're making a cold call, that is how I would approach it.
That's brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. And I love the term disarming, because I think right away when somebody has a perception that you're trying to sell something to them, again, those walls go up and you need to conquer those walls. And by doing that, is exactly what you're doing, and then I also like the element of creating the curiosity, because who could say no unless they were super, super busy. But, with that, with the verbiage that you just said, well, yeah, now I want to know why you're calling me.
I've never gotten a no. I mean, every person I've talked to has given me 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's, I've used it a lot, and I've called to the, to the top and very busy, very successful people, and they will give you 30 seconds.
Yeah. And, you're telling them what you need from them, right? Which is 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So they know that it's not going to be a, 15, 20-minute phone call. And so, I mean, that's nice, a nice way to frame that. So what do you do when somebody tells you no?
I love the no's, and you kind of get to a place, or you should get to a place where you love hearing the no's, because I've learned over my sales career that a no doesn't mean a no. And when you get a no is when the real selling begins. At least that's how I look at it, because when somebody tells you no and they think that they're out of the sales conversation, their walls are completely down. So when I hear that no, I would say something like, "Hey, Michelle, I get it. And I appreciate you sharing that with me. Now that it's over, can I ask you a question?" Because the whole "now that it's over," that has to be said. "Now that it's over, can I ask you a question?" And I go back to whatever their pain points were. "You mentioned to me that you were frustrated with X, Y, or Z. It was costing you this, but for some reason you're still stuck and not wanting to fix it. And I can't help but think I missed something. Can we talk about it?" because they don't think they're in the sales conversation anymore. So I love that approach. And sometimes it may not turn into a yes, but many times it has gotten the real issue out, which in my world, being a consultant, it's usually confidence. I don't know if I can learn this. I don't know if my age, I can grow my business to this level, but that stuff doesn't come out in the beginning of the conversation until we get to the place of no. And then they're willing to open up. You can turn a no into a referral. If it doesn't, if it's not the right fit for them, who do you know? Would you mind telling me, who do you know that you think I could help? Would you mind making an introduction? So I just take that no as a positive. I know I'm going to get it. So why not get some value from it as a business owner? It makes it a lot easier when those no's do come around. And you will turn some of those into yeses.
Yeah, that's brilliant, right? Because I think a lot of times we hear that no and here goes the knife in the heart, and okay, bye, and we hang up the call, or we leave the meeting room. But I think there's a lot of utility in learning, did you miss something? Could you have phrased something? Did you not uncover what the real problem is? Because that, in essence, that's what we're doing as entrepreneurs and business owners, is helping other people solve their problems. And maybe we actually didn't get to the problem. Maybe the person doesn't even know they have a problem.
That's a big one.
Right?
I really believe there's only two reasons that somebody doesn't buy from you. And it's not, I don't have the money, or my wife won't let me do this, or my spouse won't let me do this. Or I don't have the time for this. None of those. Those are all smoke screens. It only boils down to two things. And you mentioned one of them. It's either they don't believe they have a problem, or they don't think you're the solution. That's it. Those are the only two. So, but too many salespeople and business owners that haven't been trained in sales, they jump straight to solution. Let me tell you how I can change your life and your business, and look how amazing this is. And they just product vomit all over people. And they miss the most important point, which is, do you have the problems that I fix? And let me understand all aspects of it. How long has it been a problem? How much is it costing you in revenue and lost profits, in relationships? How's it making you feel from a stress perspective? If you could go back and do anything different, what would it be? Have you tried to fix it in the past? If you did, what happened? Like all these questions that we need to ask to really understand the problem, we go there first before we ever deal with solution. But it always comes back to the problem, like you said.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to frame it. That is a brilliant way. So let's talk about some of the top tips for closing, right? So we've got the person, they're maybe on the fence, wavering, they don't know. So what are some best practices to actually close? Because that's the hardest part that I think people struggle with outside of no.
Yeah. What I'm going to tell you is probably going to be probably not what you expect. And I think when people hear this, especially when I coach them, they're maybe a sigh of relief, but I don't teach closing because in my experience, I don't believe that there's anything that you can say that makes people all of a sudden just throw credit cards at you or throw money at you for an investment, right? Because we're both in the real estate space. There's no one-liner like that. And I get people like, well, just teach me how to close. It doesn't exist. People end up saying yes at the end. The close happens organically because of the process that you put in place ahead of that. And when people don't understand how to truly qualify, they spend their time in the close bracing themselves for tension and what are their objections going to be and how do I overcome them? And it's this tug of war. And the problem is your potential client expects you to overcome objections. So they're just going to keep throwing smoke screens at you because we never dealt with it up front. So you mentioned this before, Michelle, about what could you do differently in a conversation that would, turn that into a yes if you got a no. And I learned this when I was selling, it was like, okay, that was painful. I'm not going to lose that same sale twice. So whatever it was that got in the way, if it was, I don't have the time for this, I thought to myself, I don't want to try to overcome that because it just creates this tension and they're going to push back even more. How do I prevent it? What questions can I ask earlier in the conversation to understand from a timing perspective? Do they really have time to dedicate to this? And if there's enough pain there, there's a compelling reason, they will fight to create the time in their life. But I don't want to deal with it at the end when it's time for them to say yes. I want you to picture like a long hallway with a bunch of doors on either side as an exit. And you're walking your prospect or potential client down this hallway through the conversation. And all you're doing is these doors that they could go out and they could exit the conversation or say no, we're just gently closing those doors because we had the conversation about it. So if they say like, well, I've got a lot on my plate right now. It's like, yeah, you do. Let's talk about that. I've got a concern from a timing perspective. How are you going to make this work? And it's a different way to angle the conversation versus me trying to say like, well, do you have time for this? It's like, no, I've got a concern. Let's talk about it from my perspective. And they've got to show me that they're willing to fight for it because the pain is strong enough that they're going to move things out of the way and make time in their schedule. But it's not going to be an obstacle when it's time for them to say yes. So my close at the end, which shocks clients when I teach them this, but when it starts happening, they're like, wow, it actually works. When you qualify hard, the close is easy. And at the end of the conversation, when I know that I've closed all those doors in that hallway and they're at the very end of that hallway and the decision is a clear yes or no, that's exactly what I'm getting. 90% of the time I'm getting a yes. And my question simply is, Michelle, where do you want to go from here? And that's when they say, well, what do I do next? Do I need to sign paperwork? How do I send you money? But it's because I qualified so hard up front and I was strategic in the conversation. I closed all those doors. There's nothing else for them to say but yes or no. 90% of the time, it should be a yes.
That's brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. And I like the aspect of dealing with those potential objections up front and the open-ended questions, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's where people also falter is they ask yes or no questions. And so then there is no dialogue where you could tease out maybe what the real problem is, or maybe there's something else over here that might be a concern that wasn't addressed. So that is just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And
Thank you.
I actually envisioned you and I walking down the hallway in my house, closing
right?
doors. Yeah.
Gently closing doors, because the most frustrating thing for any business owner is they get to the end of the conversation and the person says, well, let me think about it. They say, let me think about it. There's all these doors that are open that you did not close. And it's a successful conversation for me if I get a clear yes or a clear no. And I'm okay with a clear no because I know I can turn that into a yes. I can turn it into a referral. Some of that, it's going to happen. Some of the times it's a celebration when it does happen because I know a yes is around the corner, but I don't want this wishy-washy, let me think about it. Can I call you tomorrow? I didn't do my job if that's what's happening. So we've got to just close those doors, get to a clear answer at the end. And again, 90% of the time it should be a yes, simply by you saying, Michelle, where do you want to go from here? What do you want me to do next? That's one thing that I like saying is, what would you like for me to do next? Because it puts the ball in their court if they tell me, well, can you send me documents? Can you, send me a link to pay you, to hire you as a coach, whatever it is that you're selling. But it's never going to be this assumption close. Like you hear all this stuff where it's like, would you prefer to start in December or January? And they never said they wanted to start anyways. But people think if I do this assumption close, all of a sudden, you're going to get these objections that then you overcome and it's this battle and you fight it out. And eventually they say yes and you're sweating at the end of it. And you're like, I hate sales. I don't want to do business anymore. So I don't like that version of selling. That was what was taught to me by a lot of sales trainers. And I was like, forget it. I'm going to figure out my own way. And that's where this came from, was just in the trenches, losing deals, sweating it out, figuring it out. And I'm proud to say that, clients never feel like they're being sold and they thank you at the end of it, no matter what the outcome was.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot to say for that. And you also have established, a forever client, with referrals and doing that, because all of that stuff that, we read in these books, and I think the assumptive close is so old. I mean, you do want to assume that you're going to get the sale, but some of the closing lines are just so hard and they don't even feel good coming out of your mouth.
And they don't work. Like, that's what I want to shout from the rooftops. This stuff doesn't work. So you don't have to do it. That's why people hate sales. I'm like, it doesn't work. People don't buy because of that. They buy in spite of it. And you're losing 60% of the people that were somewhere in the middle. So,
and I also think people buy you, right? Your widget or your product or your service is important, but I think a lot of times they buy you. And that's important. And that's the difference between, being sold and you actually as the buyer being in the driver's seat and kind of going where you want to go. Although, that may not how it started out, but, the person now is empowered to make that decision to move forward with whatever that is. So Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to open it up for questions, Keeley, but I know we have your website on the banner down there, but is there any other ways that people can get a hold of you if they have questions about your coaching service or questions about your syndication business? How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I would say just find me on social. I'm on all all the platforms. Shoot me a message. I get messages on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, and my username is just my full name, Keeley Hubbard. So feel free to
Okay.
message me. I'd love to chat. You'll probably get a voice message back. I'm into voice messaging. It's a lot faster, but you will get a personal voice message from me versus something that's just typed out.
And I know that you have something else that you have to do. So we have two questions. I'll run through them really quick. This one is from Stuart. He wants to know if you have experience in med tech investing.
I don't. That's an interesting question. I do not.
Ah,
I'm wondering if that's if it's from a sales perspective, or if you're thinking about it from a real estate perspective. I don't. But from a sales perspective, if you are, whatever it is that you're selling, everything I've talked about tonight applies to it. Doesn't matter the industry, doesn't matter the role that you're in. I've coached people in cybersecurity sales, enterprise sales, both B2B and B2C. So, but no, I have not specifically done med tech.
I do. I know people.
Oh, of course you do. I love it.
So you can reach out to me if
Thank
you
you.
want, Stuart. So Amber says, great advice. Thank you so much. Shira is saying hi to you, Keeley. And Amber has a question here. Would you consider price increasing for current clients or as a sales process? If so, how would you have that conversation with them?
I love that. So I think when it goes sideways is when they don't expect that and it just comes out of the blue. So I think there's a difference between increasing your price on your existing process versus increasing your price because you're adding value to what you're doing and therefore the cost is going up. So if it's just for like maybe your whatever your service or your cost is, say it's $5,000 a month, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to start charging $6,000 a month. It's going to go over a lot better. If you let them know, just, with everything going on, we're hiring more people in our effort to better serve our clients. We're hiring, higher level people. And so our costs are going to go up in the next few months, but here's what we're doing to make sure that we are, here's an added value that we've included. It's not something we're going to do for every client. It's just for our, not your favorite clients, but I'd say for our most important clients, we're adding this to our package. Are you okay if we talk about, want to make sure that we're still, working within your budget and it's a good fit for both of us. So just don't hit them with it out of the blue. That's what's going to make them uncomfortable, and try to find a way to add some value to that doesn't maybe cost you anything or create more time on your part or, stretch you too thin. But there's a lot of times things that you can add for clients that they find a ton of value in that doesn't require much on your part. It makes it easier to raise your price too.
Yeah, that's true. And I think it goes back to always adding value.
Mhm.
People embrace that. So Keeley, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us tonight. If you have any questions regarding Keeley's sales coaching program, please reach out to her at keeleyhubbard.com. And I do believe on your website, you also have a free download or something.
Yeah,
Uh,
I do.
yeah.
Yeah.
And do you want to plug Hubbard Capital really quick in case people have questions about Texas vineyards?
Yeah, I mean, it's if you've ever been curious about investing in vineyards, maybe you've heard about it from another episode with Michelle, but you can reach us at hubbardcapitalgroup.com. Something people get confused is they think we're doing wineries. We're not. We're actually just growing grapes, selling them to vineyards, and it's an incredible opportunity in Texas to build a legacy, fill a supply gap, and we'd love to help other families build their own legacy at the same time. So you can find us at hubbardcapitalgroup.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We shall see you next time. Keeley, thank you for your time and imparting your knowledge on us. It's always a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate it. I'm grateful to know you.
You bet. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.